Okay, so welcome back. Today, we're actually going to talk about a laptop that, first off, I wasn't really even tracking until one of my viewers just happened to mention it. And I think I may have seen it briefly mentioned on my news, on one of my news feeds, but didn't think to check into it. Kind of glad that the viewer mentioned it, and I'm glad that I did, because frankly, this laptop, in my opinion, is the laptop that I think that Lenovo should have released back when I was actually looking for a laptop. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. Sorry, I'm just going to move around here just to kind of find the right starting point. All right, so my screen recorder is on. In all actuality, the laptop's called the ThinkPad T15g Gen 1. And back when I was actually looking for a replacement for my T430, and then of course I ended up getting the X1 Extreme, the thing that I kind of realized that I wanted was a ultra portable or something close. It could be a little bit heavier, but I wanted the ThinkPad keyboard, so like the T series. Granted, I wanted a really decent gaming GPU. And, you know, as close as I could get at the time for me was the X1 Extreme. But it's funny because I remember saying to myself, man, if Lenovo would just take the Legion series and give it the ThinkPad keyboard with the nub, I'd probably just buy that. I don't think they're ever going to do that because that doesn't make any sense because it would cannibalize other lines. But what they did was very close. Now, they released the performance specification reference on their website. And if you want to go there now to actually hear, really, if you just go to Google, type in, you know, this, it'll give you the actual link to the PDF so you can follow along in the first hyperlink. But this is it. And because we have this now available, I'm actually going to use it as we go through, because once again, I like to wait for the specs to be released officially prior to looking through them just to kind of see what we're going to get. So starting with the processor. Okay, so the processor was kind of confusing to me because what I've done on my sheet is I've highlighted the things that I think are notable for me as an editor. But I will say there were some other things I highlighted because I'm like, oh, I don't really understand why they did this, but I kind of wanted to discuss them. If you notice with the processors, so the processors versus the last video I did, which was the Gen 3 Extreme X1, this one has two different processors on the i9 side as well as the i7 side. And in addition to that, they offer Xeon processors, which is kind of confusing to me because generally what I normally see is Xeon is actually offered in concert with Quattro cards, which this laptop doesn't offer a Quattro card, but I don't really understand that. Who knows, maybe there's a user out there that's going to watch this and they understand why they did that, or maybe they have a system that they bought the Xeon and they didn't get the Quattro, and I would just like to know what the rationale is. Because to me, if you're doing like 3D modeling or something like that, and you want one, you want the other as well. But once again, maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't buy Xeons, so feel free to leave a remark. Moving right along, you now get the capability, or I shouldn't say now, because that makes it seem like this laptop exists. It doesn't. This is the first generation. And when I keep saying that, I keep comparing it to the X1 Extreme, which I have. But versus the X1 Extreme, you will get the capability of having more memory, because now you can get up to 128 gigabytes, and it's actually going to be dispersed amongst 4 DIMM slots or sockets, which I love that idea because now I have options when I go to actually buy that 128 gigabytes. If it's a better deal for me to actually buy smaller sticks of RAM, so 32 gigabyte sticks, for those versus 264s, which may be more expensive. Now, once again, I have the option to do so. So depending on what the market is doing, I could buy the cheapest memory and still get the same capability up to my 2,933 megahertz. So pretty impressive. Let's see. Yeah, and then we get to the graphics card. So the graphics card, other than the Xeon thing, once again, that's not an issue for me. The only issue I have with the graphics card, I'm glad, first off, that they gave us, or they put an RTX 280 and 270 into this laptop, the super version. I was still a little bit confused on why they did Max Q, and the main reason is because this is not an ultra portable. Me personally, I would have preferred the non-Max Q version, and who knows, maybe when they put this on the website, there's an additional option, or maybe even the Gen 2, to maybe not get the Max-Q design, but just to get the regular RTX 20 or 2070 or 80 laptop version, of course, in the laptop. Because me personally, I'd rather have more power versus having better efficiency. Now, I have not reviewed the 280 Super Max-Q design. I have watched a couple of videos just to kind of see what the performance looks like. There's this guy here. He actually went through and he compared the Max-Q Super to, or the 280 Max-Q Super to the 270 Super, and there was definitely a performance increase. But I would like to see what the non-Max-Q version would do, the 280 versus the Max-Q version of the 280, and that's just not up yet. I also looked at another guy who compared the Super 280 to the desktop version, and I thought that was kind of unfair, but you know, whatever. But it just gives you some ideas to how it actually perform. And granted, you can see it's kind of far off. I mean, you're competing against a desktop version here. So surprise, surprise, you know, the desktop version should be more powerful. All right, jumping back over to the spec sheet. The next thing I would mention is the color calibration from the factory. If that's something that you desire, you now get that with your UHD panels. And if you look at the panels, they look like they are exactly the same as the X1 Gen 3 panel. So the same options, which, you know, pretty good, I guess. But yeah, if you want factory color calibration, now it's an option as well from the factory. The last time I saw this on the Lenovo website, it was an option. So you actually select it when you were configuring your laptop. I don't know if this is going to be the case with this laptop or if it's just going to be standard. Moving along to your redundant array, individual drives or disks support. So now you get that, or I should say now, you do get that with this laptop. If that's something you desire. I don't use RAID at all, but I do have friends that actually do the same sort of stuff that I do, and they do. So I get it. It is an option. Let's see. We're going to jump over to the other side here. And now we're going to look at the dimensions. So this laptop, think the P series, but it is a T series, right? So it's a P series platform or body, but it's still a T series, which is a little strange. And really what makes it kind of a P series or T series versus the P series is those processor and graphics configurations, although it does have the Xeon, which the P series has that too. And then I'm thinking that the price point may be lower, but I'm not gonna bet on that yet until I actually see it. But needless to say, size-wise, it's gonna be the same dimension as the P series. So it's gonna be heavier than the X1 Extreme. For me, this is a non-issue. As a matter of fact, what I would say is if I was in the market right now for a replacement for the ThinkPad, I'm gonna open up my blind just a little bit. I'm using natural light today. That would even be an issue for me. I like really a 6-pound laptop. Really is probably about what my T430 is. Maybe it might even be a little bit heavier because I have the extended battery. But needless to say, if I can get all the power that I need, as well as all the extras that come with having a bigger frame, I personally would be okay with this. But granted, I still need to see the price point. And because it is larger, now you're going to get a lot more ports. Now that right there is a big deal for me. That's the one thing I will say that I wish that the the X1 Extreme had. But once again, it's ultra portable, 3.75 pounds. So it only makes sense that it doesn't have as many ports. But I would love to have a dock. And I don't like the docks that they make now. I like the docks where I can physically put the laptop in and, you know, lock it in and I have all the ports. Actually, right behind my laptop over here, you probably can't see it. I have a HP ProBook that I use for work, and it's actually sitting on the dock because that ProBook has even less ports than the X1. But when I actually add the dock, I get a lot of, more than enough. So just for like work, I would love to have more ports, and this laptop would have the right amount of ports that I actually would need. Actually, I think it has more than enough when I was looking at this earlier. So let's see, I'm gonna keep moving along here. Monitor support, went ahead and highlighted that. It may or may not be important to you, but I love multiple monitors. That's the other thing I do with my ProBook. So I have a dock at home, and then I have a dock in my office. And at my job, I actually have three monitors. So I have a 3 monitor setup. And just to be able to do that and have a laptop that can support that, and really, when it's time for me to leave, I just unlock it and take it with me, and I come home, and then I'm unfortunately down to one screen when I'm teleworking, but it's still a great thing to have. It may vary depending on what you do. You may not necessarily need that, so it may not be as important to you. When I do video editing and photography, I usually do it on one screen. I think this year I'm probably going to change that because I think my workflow would be better with an additional screen or two. At the very least, one screen, or I would say maybe a dual monitor setup. So let's see. I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff because once again, I kind of picked out the things that I thought that were going to be super important to me. And, as hopefully a person that's creating content. And that's going to bring me down to my max battery life. Once again, 6-pound laptop, I'm probably not going to be unplugged as much. So it's not really that big of a deal if it can't run, like, I would say, all day unplugged, but this is pretty significant. The one thing I will tell you is it's a little bit inconsistent, and when I say that, I can't really say it's a Lenovo fault or a Mobile Mark fault, but I was looking at kind of the hours that I would get from Mobile Mark or in Mobile Mark 18, and it was 12 hours, and then from 14, and this is, by the way, it's on the X1 Gen 3. It was 15 hours for Mobile Mark 14. And then when you come over here, the hours, let's see. So 18 dropped to 10.3 and 14 went up to 16.4. So I don't get why they flip-flop. That's just weird to me. I actually wonder if one of these is a mistake, a typo. I don't know. So this is another one that once the laptop starts shipping, I'm curious to see, what people are actually getting with this laptop once they test it themselves. Because once again, this is Lenovo advertising and providing the numbers to us. But what I will say is my expectation is due to the battery size, which is a 94 watt hour battery compared to, I believe it was the 80 watt hour battery inside of the, let me just verify that before I say it. Yeah, 80 watt battery hour. I'm thinking it's not going to be as efficient, of course, as the X1 Extreme, but I do believe that it'll be decent. So once again, I'm curious to see once people get this and they start using it, what are they actually going to get? When they bump those settings down, like when I'm unplugged, I usually just bump my settings down and this thing lasts for a long time. So yeah, I would actually have to see other folks benchmark it just to kind of see where it's at. If it's at about 10 hours, I'm okay with that. And that's what everything turned down. So in the event that it's, everything's on max performance and you're getting like, 2 or 3 hours, I think that's actually decent too. But actually, I think that's really good if you can max everything out, especially with that RTX card and still get like 2 or 3 hours. So that's not a deal breaker for me. Then, of course, you get your 2 different adapters, which I think is awesome. Of course, it's going to also have your rapid charge technology as well, which was back here. I didn't really highlight that, but I love rapid charge technology. My understanding is your Gen 2 and your Gen 3 X1 Extremes can actually charge via the port, but it's more of a trickle charge. I don't even use that. I like having it plugged into the charge as fast as possible, and once again, it spoiled me, so I'm glad this laptop has it. And then the last but not least, you can choose preloaded operating systems. I love this because I'm a Linux user also. Now, all of my laptops right now, I'm just making sure, yeah, all of my laptops right now are running Windows, some form of Windows. I have the majority of them, like the 2 that are up here right now, on Windows 10. The T430 is on Windows 10. The X2, which I gave to my kiddo, is running 10 now. That one was running Ubuntu, And then it was also running Mint at one time. The X series I have that I really don't use, my oldest X series, I had Mint on that one as well. I actually rolled that one back to, oh gosh, like Windows 95 just to play around with it. It's actually pretty fun because I forget, how much I like Windows 95. But then there's a lot of things it doesn't do. But needless to say, I still love using Linux. I've had jobs in the past where that's what we used at work. And to be able to get, Ubuntu Lite or Fedora, from the factory, that's pretty awesome. In addition to that, you can also get 3 different variants of Windows. So you can get Home and Pro, but you can also get the workstation variant of it. So to me, now you're moving back towards that P series, area, because you can get a Xeon processor and you can get the Windows 10 for workstations. So it's pretty neat, but it's just weird that they offer those things too on this. So maybe I'm missing something, because once again, when I saw this laptop, I wasn't thinking professional users. I was thinking someone that's like into gaming, but they also want to be able to like have a great professional device as well. So, and I know, in my opinion, and I'll probably get blasted for this, I think that the build quality on ThinkPads is way better than, like for instance, an Ideal Pad, which you can get with the GPU, or even the Legion. Because that was the other thing with the Legion, is like, yeah, I would take one with the ThinkPad keyboard, but the Legion's not going to be mil-spec, so the build quality is not going to be the same. So I think they're trying to like cater to like more people by offering those options. So I get it. Once again, there's no reason for me to get the workstation variant of Windows 10. And I think that was about it as far as the things that I thought were notable. So here are my thoughts so far on the ThinkPad T15 Golf. And man, I got to drink something because my throat is parched. I think it's a great idea. I think it is a wonderful laptop. I believe it is long overdue. Me personally, I would pick it up in a heartbeat, even with the Max-Q variant of the 280 RTX Super. I believe that that's actually going to be a really great card regardless. But who knows? Maybe they decide that they're going to offer the non-Max-Q variant. And if they don't do it now, maybe the next generation. I actually tried to go to NVIDIA's site just to kind of see if there was some mention of those cards or something that they're going to do that's different with the next card, but this is a little bit too early, and that card is brand new anyway. But I have the Max-Q variant of the 1050 in this machine, and it's more than enough. So knowing that really that card will be, a couple of generations better, it's still going to be an improvement over the X1 Extreme that I have, and I love my computer. Like, it does everything that I needed to do, so that one will be more than enough. But that's really it. I think that, frankly, even with that, like I said, it would be a laptop I would pick up in a heartbeat. If I did not already have an X1 Extreme, I would actually look at the T15 Golf first. I love the T-Series. Actually, one of my favorite laptops was the T430. And I actually looked at getting another T440p just to kind of play around on. So I love the T-Series. I don't necessarily need an X-Series, but I like the X-Series. I like ThinkPads. But I would highly recommend that laptop. Now, if for some reason I already had a, ThinkPad that actually had a, similar performance, GPU, dedicated GPU, and I was looking at replacing it. So let's say I was a P-Series user, depending on the configuration, these laptops are very close. So I guess it really depends on what you're doing with the P-Series. If there's something that, you can't do without having that Quattro card, then, it would make no sense to actually buy the T15 Golf. Now, if I'm a person who has an X1 Extreme and I'm looking at, maybe upgrading, or maybe I'm looking at buying the Gen 3, there are going to be things that this laptop is going to be able to do that the X1 Extreme won't be able to do. I mean, number one, you're going to have a better GPU. You also have different options on your processor. So that's the other thing too that I really liked about this laptop, is the fact that I can get the i7 1080 875H, which would be very similar to the processor. I have the 8875 inside of this laptop. So it's like the higher or the fastest i7 that they offer, and it has 16 cores versus the 12 cores that you would get in the with the 10850 if you got the X1 Extreme. So having that option, I like that idea. Don't really care about the i9. Let's see. And then, like I said, having a larger laptop with more ports. But once again, it's not going to be as portable as the X1 Extreme. So performance-wise, yes, there's definitely going to be an increase if you are doing gaming. And like I said, editing. Now, my previous video, I believe I had a guy that actually said something about a comment I made about being GPU intensive. It was in reference to video editing. Some video editors, they're not necessarily maxing out the GPU when you're doing video editing. So with the exception of DaVinci, I don't use DaVinci Resolve, I have it loaded, but I actually use Premiere. And every once in a while I use Power Director. Now in Premiere, you do have the option to utilize the GPU as well more, and I believe the software has changed because at one time that actually wasn't the case. I really just started using Premiere this year, but I believe that if for some reason you decided that you were going to use an editor that was going to use the GPU more, then there's going to be definitely an advantage to actually having the T15 Golf over the X1 Extreme, because once again, it's a better GPU. And then for photo editing, I don't really see that big of a difference at all, to be honest with you, because this doesn't struggle. It is, and honestly, it doesn't break a sweat when I'm actually editing photos. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions or comments, concerns about what I think about the 15G so far, feel free to leave them down below. Once again, I think that it is a great laptop. I think that it is a laptop that, frankly, unless I'm missing something, it's probably going to sell really well. I'm wondering if it's going to cannibalize any of the other lines. So whether it's the Legion or the P series, I highly doubt that it's going to impact the X1 Extreme just because it's ultra portable competing against a lot larger laptop. But I may be wrong. You know, maybe it does, because even though this isn't ultra portable, this isn't the lightest ultra portable. There are other laptops that are lighter, but for me, the Extreme is a better balance. So I get all the things that I need. But so yeah, I would be curious to see how it does when they release it. And then based on that, if it sticks around, what that Gen 2 is going to look like. But looks like it's really good so far. And who knows, you know, if something happens to this laptop or if I have a need, I may have one of those at my house in the near future. But I think it's a great laptop. That's all I got. Once again, Agent Fitz signing out.